So I'm going to speak a little bit about my experience being social media free for the last 6 years. And basically, 6 years ago, I decided I wanted to start a business. And I was going into full-time work. And so it was important for me to figure out how I was going to find time in my day to work on my business. And when I assessed the times that I was spending on the different activities that I had in the day, I noticed that a lot of time was being spent just needlessly scrolling through social media. And that was like an instant thing that I was like, okay, like, is this serving me in life? No, like, I'm just going to switch it off. And so I basically wound up, and I was at a point in life where I was actually getting a bit agitated by my phone, like this constant beeping. And sometimes like I would hear my phone beeping, even though it wasn't beeping. And so I was like, okay, this is like just driving me a bit crazy. And so I basically put my phone on silent. I switched off all notifications on apps. I took all social media apps off at least off the main screen. I didn't delete any of my profiles, but like, so they were there. My connections are still there, but I just didn't have any desire to continue scrolling and being active on it and constantly being like pinged for things like gaming notifications and like what someone's had for breakfast, like those things, like it just wasn't adding any value to my life. And so that was the main thing that I did to free up time to spend on my business. Having spent all that time off social media, I mean, it's been a really interesting experience because there are obviously pros and cons to everything that you do in life. And the pros meant I freed up my time. It meant that I wasn't getting constantly my attention wasn't constantly being pulled away to stuff that isn't important. And it meant that I also went through life becoming more of an independent thinker, I would say. And I spent more time, I went through an experience where I went through like a lot of like solitude, and that gave me like this sense of like deep reflection on the experiences that I've had in life and moving forward as well. And I think that's really kind of cleared my mind in a way to be able to speak to people through my own experiences and perspectives, having not constantly been fed a lot of stuff that's typically trending, or like over the years there's been things like wokeness. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, there are downfalls in the sense that you kind of get a bit left behind when it comes to like trending things, but at the same time you gain so much more, I mean, life experience, because one, you're not spending all that time on social media, you're out and living life. I was traveling, I was starting my business, making new friends. On that note, I would also say that the way in which I did it, if I was to go back in time, I would do things differently. So if you are thinking of leaving social media, bear with me for a moment, because I'm going to share a few things that I would do differently. And so one of the things that I did was I just got off cold turkey. I didn't tell anyone. I just stopped using it. I just did everything I just mentioned without saying anything to anyone. And so I was obviously still being invited. It was something, Facebook in particular was a tool that I was using through university. And I had all my connections from university on there. And of course I had some of the closer friends on WhatsApp, but leaving like that meant that I just disappeared. And I was still getting invites to birthdays and events and get-togethers and things like that. And I basically wasn't responding to them because I wasn't seeing them. And it also meant that I don't know where I was at the time. And maybe I was feeling like, because you have a lot of social connections through uni, but maybe I wasn't feeling like, how do I describe it? I don't know, like it was, I had some close friends, but I was always a very like social butterfly. So I moved around. I got on with everybody. I was part of lots of like groups, but I never really felt like I was really like integrated in a particular group because I was very much a social butterfly. And I think my background as well, like, just doesn't help, because I'm very like diverse in my background. I'm half Maltese, half Puerto Rican, from London, and I never really felt like I fit in, even though I had a lot of connections and a lot of people that I got on with and I really enjoyed being around. I did keep Facebook Messenger, which meant that if anybody did want to reach out, they could. And actually, what I found is that not many people did. And I know it also, from my part, gives off a signal when I disappear and don't say anything, that maybe I don't care about those connections. So I can kind of see it in both ways. But I remember during that time, people used to say things like, oh, Facebook friends aren't really your real friends. And I mean, I just have this belief that if you're meant to stay connected with people, like, that will happen. And you're not meant to kind of drag everybody that you've met in life along with you in life and expect those connections to be the same as when they were during a period of time where you were meant to be connected, right? And so, although I went through a period where it felt like I'd lost a lot of friends and a lot of those connections, because I think that was just part of my path and going on this journey, which was one of just a bit more solitude. And what I'm finding now is that in the last couple of years, now that I've gone through that experience, some of those connections are naturally coming back into my life, regardless of me being on social media or not. So either through, I literally bump into people at train stations and at like business events and things like that, and we just reconnect. I would say one caveat: I did keep one foot in LinkedIn just for career purposes, but actually, because I went through a workplace experience that was quite challenging, LinkedIn actually became a bit of a trigger for me. Like, I was struggling because I was getting emails from LinkedIn and things like that, and it was like, whilst I was recovering from this workplace experience that I had, I mean, I think it was just part of that learning. Well, that was the one kind of foot that I had. And yeah, and so some connections came through that way. But yeah, like, in terms of like endlessly scrolling through social media, like, it's such a waste of time. And unless you're using it as a tool for what it is, and really it's a marketing tool these days, it's a way to kind of connect with an audience. And yeah, you can connect with friends and family, but if it's consuming so much of your time and so much of your attention to the point where you're not really doing the things that you really want to do in life, because you're consuming yourself with something that's not really giving you a whole lot of value or uplifting you in any way, it's actually bringing you down because you're comparing yourself to so many people. And I think that can be quite toxic. And especially, you might not feel like you're where you want to be in life, and you're seeing other people in those places, and I don't think that's a really healthy thing. But that experience over 6 years, and I'm still not active on social media. And I think that's why I'm more drawn to YouTube, because it's my way of creating a community and an audience around what I value and what my interests are, and just sharing these experiences, because I think they are quite unique in some extent, but also very relatable to today's society. So today's world, I'm guessing. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. I think I went around in circles a little bit. I don't really plan these videos. They're very intuitive speaking videos. But if this message has found you, then, and you've been thinking about leaving social media for a while, like, I do recommend it. Just tread carefully, like, to let people know, make sure they have your number if they do want to reach out, just so that you're not putting yourself in a situation where you're kind of losing a lot of connections, because I feel like this world can feel very disconnected anyway. And although social media has been set up as a way to connect people, it can also give a false sense of connection. Like, I find, like, I thrive in person connection. Like, there's nothing better than being in the presence and energy of people in a room, compared to just speaking people through a screen. And I think with like work especially, I mean, we're all tired of like Zoom calls and like always speaking to people through a screen. And I think having this experience where I've navigated through travel and gone very much down like the old school route of actually wanting to connect with people really like in person and meeting new people in person, And I would love to create a community and eventually bring them together in person, because I think that's really where the real connections are made. Yeah, so I just wanted to share that with you, and I hope it's given you some kind of insight into how you want to navigate this world of social media, because I know it can be challenging, especially for the younger generations who are very native to it, who don't know any different. Like, I feel like I was very fortunate to be brought into a world where I know what life was like before internet and social media was mainstream. And then kind of growing into this world where it's become so prevalent and such a big part of our life. But I can see also, like, for the younger generations who haven't experienced what life was like before that time, it's like a whole world of challenges that I never had to face growing up. And I'm seeing that a lot of young people are having to face these things and like growing up very quickly because of what they're seeing on social media. And yeah, if you are like in a younger generation than me, and you're seeing this video, then maybe it is something you want to challenge yourself, because phones can be very addictive. And I feel like having that space, that headspace to be bored, like, it's okay to feel bored, because that boredom leads you to things that are more interesting and lead you to the things that pull your interest, like, without falling back to your phone and falling back to social media and a fear of missing out and like all of these things. Because in this time, like, I've explored so many things. Like, business was an interest of mine, and so I allowed myself to explore that without having my time consumed by other things that aren't adding value in that kind of way. And yeah, like, if you think about older generations who didn't have all of these distractions, and they would fill their time reading books and learning things and creating things, creating art, and they would be like very multi-talented people, because they would have this time and this sense of boredom, they would then fill that time with things that were interesting to them, they would pick up new hobbies. And I feel like we've lost that sense of exploration of our own interest, because our time's been so consumed by distractions. And yeah, so I mean, that's just something to think about. I'm going to leave it there. So good luck with that, and see you another time.